Have you ever heard anyone say, television was invented in Fort Wayne? We're going to analyze that claim on this episode of Hallmark Moments in History. Stay tuned. Hello everyone, Brock with you today on another episode of Hallmark Home Mortgage Television, Hallmark Moments in History. We're going to explore the fascinating life of Philo T Farnsworth today and his impact on Fort Wayne and its economy. Before we begin, if you're looking to buy, build, or refinance, make sure you give the experts at Hallmark Home Mortgage a call or go to onehallmark.com to get your mortgage journey started today. All right, let's deal with the first question. Right up front, did television or electronic television get invented in Fort Wayne? Sometimes you hear folks say that, and the short answer is no, it did not. But it was invented by Philo T Farnsworth. Now, you might say, well, what's electronic television? Well, there's television that we have today, it's considered electronic, but prior to that, there was something called mechanical television. And mechanical television was sort of a way of using motors and spinning discs at high revolutions per minute. The discs had holes in them in a spiral pattern and placed over an image and a light source, moved at a high enough revolution, it could create this still image that would show the movement, and so that was considered mechanical television. It was rather crude to what we have today. Now, what's interesting about the life of Farnsworth is he was born in 1906, grew up in rural Utah, actually had the vision for electronic television, or the part that would invent electronic television while plowing a field with horses. He had this idea that if electrons could go across a line or a field, like a horse plowing a field back and forth, he could create an image or reflect that image, so to speak. And so at the age of 14 in 1920, he drew a primitive design for what would become known as an image dissector, and this was really Farnsworth's contribution to making TV work in electronic fashion. And the teacher at the time had no idea kind of what the drawing was all about, but he did encourage Farnsworth to keep wrestling the idea to the ground, to cultivate it, to work on it. And so he did have support from a young age, and he took these ideas and these plans. He was a tinkerer. He loved working with electricity. He was a brilliant man that got involved in so many things beyond television. But on September 7th of 1927, using his image dissector, he was able to produce or broadcast a line across a cathode ray tube, which became sort of the first TV screen, if you will. And Farnsworth said, there you are, electronic television. So this was in 1927. He's kind of the inventor of electronic television, but there was legal battles between he and the folks at RCA. They had a similar device that they wanted to claim was like Farnsworth's image dissector, but long story short, after years of legal battles, Farnsworth was declared the inventor of electronic television, and RCA actually acknowledged this and paid for usage of Farnsworth's technology. In 1939, Farnsworth went to the New York World's Fair, held sessions to demonstrate live television. His image dissector was put in television cameras, and this allowed for the 1936 Berlin Olympics to be broadcast, actually. So he was way ahead of his time, and he does have a strong connection to Fort Wayne. And here's our local history tie-in. Farnsworth lived here from 1938 to 1967. Now, the Farnsworth Television and Radio Corporation brought a new energy to the Fort Wayne economy. Radios were selling very well, and the goal was to produce these consumer-level television sets that could be sold as well. Now, one of the unfortunate incidences that occurred during Farnsworth's life was World War II, and so The corporation had to start helping with the war effort with raw materials. They helped invent some radar systems for the war effort and even missile guidance technology. So they were very heavily involved in helping during that conflict. Okay, so after World War II, Farnsworth, things are not going as well as you would like from the company's perspective in selling radios and televisions, and long story short, his company gets bought by the International Telegraph and Telephone Company, or better known as ITT today. Still the same location there on Pontiac Street. Now, Farnsworth is kind of given an Area 51, if you will, for tinkering and research, and they called it the cave, the basement of this facility, where he was given room to experiment, invent, and he did a tremendous amount of good. He holds over 300 patents. In his basement lab off of Pontiac Street, he was working on a device called a nuclear fuser device. It was self-sustaining nuclear fusion. So we're talking about the type of things the type of energy that would power the sun and the stars. And that's the level of genius that this man had. In 1947, through some acquaintances, there was a phone call that was able to be set up between Farnsworth and Albert Einstein, and the two connected. And Farnsworth's wife, affectionately known as Pem, said that Farnsworth was glowing after the call because he finally was talking to somebody that could understand where his mindset was at with this type of energy conversation, this talk of self-sustaining energy. And unfortunately, before Farnsworth could share the math, Einstein had passed away, so he wasn't able to kind of carry that conversation on, and he felt very isolated on that topic, but nevertheless he continued work on his nuclear fuser. There are some reports maybe he achieved nuclear fusion right here in Fort Wayne. We'll never really know that. In 1969, Farnsworth and his wife were watching the moon landing. It was a highlight of Farnsworth's career to know that his image dissector was in the cameras that were transmitting those images back to Earth, and he said it was worth it. Farnsworth was a bit jaded on television. He never became rich from his inventions or work that were put forth towards it. He never became wealthy in life, but he contributed so much in so many ways. The nuclear fuser device is very interesting to see if there was actually groundwork laid there. We'll never truly know. Like I said, Farnsworth died in 1971. A lot of that work was done in the lab on Pontiac Street, but it was also done in his home. There were reports that there were big holes drilled in floor and ceiling to hold these large glass tubes and various materials for the invention of the nuclear fuser. So that home still stands today. It is on the corner of St. Joe Boulevard and East State Boulevard. It is right on the corner. It's a pretty large home for its time, and there is a historical marker that should be present. It's currently not standing, but it's normally right at the homestead there, and you can read a little bit about Farnsworth. But a tremendous individual, made such an impact in so many things with his inventive work, and a large period of his life was spent right here in Fort Wayne, Indiana. Farnsworth during his time said that he would take his Fort Wayne team because they were eons ahead of the engineers at MIT as it related to fusion and work on energy. So that was pretty fascinating. And he had a quote as well that said, "Men and trees die. Ideas live on for the ages." For Hallmark Home Mortgage Television, I'm Brock. I'm hoping that you learned a little bit about Philo T Farnsworth, his impact on Fort Wayne in this Hallmark moment in history. Thanks so much for watching. Go find the great things in your community, and we'll see you next time.